Cynghorydd Geraint Lloyd Williams.
Geraint Lloyd Williams, diolch yn fawr iawn I chi, Rhian. Cyhoeddi buddiant, Declaration of Interest.
Yes, Chair, I'd like to declare.
Iawn. Diolch, Paul.
Item, what is it? Item 5, Social Services Annual Report. My wife is a manager for a young carers charity. I'm also a trustee and a volunteer with that charity that provides services to Denbighshire. They very clearly have an interest, and I suspect it may be prejudicial. I'm just checking.
Don't think so.
Well, I will have some questions about young carers later, so I just want to clarify that I am involved with the charity that provides the service to.
I'm also chair of the RHAGLEN Dementia Group, but really dementia doesn't come up very often in this report, but I'm also involved with the dementia group in RHAGLEN. Anyone else? Unrhyw un arall? Rhian?
Just on that, Councillor Penlington, you say your wife works for social care, a private company, I take it, is it?
No, it's a charity, Credit Young Carers. They provide the young carers service to Denbighshire and other counties, and she's a manager with that charity. So,
right. Does your question concern that aspect of it?
no, I'm declaring an interest, a personal interest. Clearly, I'm just wondering, would that also count as a prejudicial interest? Because discussing that in this meeting today wouldn't benefit myself or my wife in any way, I don't think. But you never know. I'm just trying to clarify.
I would say you've got a prejudicial interest. So what we'll do, you've declared it, we'll note it, and then we'll send you the form to complete. Sorry, I meant personal. Sorry, I thought it wasn't prejudicial, it's personal. So, yeah, you're okay part in the debate.
Okay, diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. Unrhyw un arall? Diolch. Nag oes, dwi'n meddwl. Felly, materion BRYS gan y cadeirydd? Nag oes, dim byd gyda I. Ac ewn ni ymlaen I cofnodion y Pwyllgor diwetha, tudalen 5 I 16. A wneith rhywun gynnig bod nhw'n iawn I ddechrau. Os gwelwch yn dda.
Yes, happy to do that.
Thank you. And Ellie wedi eilio. Diolch yn fawr, Hugh. Are all in agreement? Just put your hand up. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Diolch I chi. Diolch yn fawr. Ewn ni drwyddo nhw rwan. We'll go through them. Matters arising. Tudalen 5. Dim byd dwi'n meddwl. Tudalen 6. Tudalen 7. Tudalen 8. Tudalen 9. Tudalen 10. Just I gadarnhau y cofnod sgynnwch chi fan hyn. Rhian. Yeah. Hello. Who's that? Bobby. Is she okay? Okay. Okay.
You're not on mute, Bobby.
Beg your pardon.
The chairman is on mute, guys. Could you chair? Could. Oh.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
We can't hear the translation.
Yeah.
I've just heard the translator, so.
And I haven't.
No. But she's not translating.
Not
No.
now.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ben?
If I will restart.
I've actually put mine on Welsh because the English is just crackling and
I'll say that. Yeah.
I'm not hearing much.
Okay. On page 10, tudalen.
Okay.
Dwi'n gofyn cwestiwn. There are fewer resources available to undertake assessments through the medium of Welsh, which is a national issue and not confined to the area of national learning needs. The need to address the issue continues to be raised with the Welsh Government on a regular basis. Ydych chi wedi cael cyfle I wneud ymweliadau efo hwnna, Rhian?
Na, dwi'n wedi dim ymweliadau ynglyn â hynny, ond oedd hwnna'n rhywbeth o Geraint yn dweud, maen nhw'n neud yn rheolaidd, maen nhw'n codi'r pwynt yn rheolaidd, a wedyn mwy o ddatganiad a hwnna fwy na gweithred.
Mae'n rhaid gadarnhau ar y fel.
Neu, diolch Hugh.
Ie, mae hwnna yn rhan o'r strategaeth WESP fydd yn dod i fewn i consultation yn y misoedd nesaf yma. So mae hwnna yn un o'r bwriadau i ni wneud yn y dyfodol. So mae o ar bapur yma hefyd.
Diolch ti, Boed. Diolch fawr iawn. Tudalen 11, tudalen 12, page 13, tudalen 13. You were mentioned here, Councillor Paul Penlington, where the lead member agreed to provide Councillor Paul Penlington with a detailed cost breakdown relating to highways, facilities and environmental services and education and children's services outside of the meeting. Has that happened, Paul? He's on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, in a roundabout kind of way, I was given the link to a particular report that contained that information, which was quite a lengthy report, but it was there.
Diolch, Paul. Thank you very much. A felly, da ni mlaen I tudalen 14, tudalen 15. That's over and done with. Da iawn, ardderchog. Ewn ni mlaen wan, a croeso arbennig I Nicola Stubbins, sydd wedi ymuno â ni, a y cynghorydd Bobby Feely, a'r cynghorydd Hugh Hilditch Roberts, y ddau sydd ar y cabinet. Ac yn braint I rwan ydy edrych to enable the members to scrutinise the draft annual reports prior to them being submitted to the Care Inspector Wales. What is annoying, we got 2 years here, 2019-2020 and 2020-2021. So we've got to look at 2 years. Perhaps you'll explain, Nicola, a croeso mawr I chi, why we got 2 years to look at.
Arwel.
Yeah.
Arwel.
Yeah.
Would you mind if I just did a little introduction for Nicola?
I do apologise.
And possibly Hugh might want to come in as well. But as you said, Arwel, there are 2 annual reports this year because the requirement was suspended by Welsh Government due to the COVID outbreak. So now we have 2 for the price of 1, as you might say. The last year and a half or so has been difficult, but as Statutory Director of Social Services, Nicola has not only managed to take a leading role during the pandemic in Denbighshire, but regionally and nationally as well, and also to a large extent carried on with business as usual. All this against a backdrop of financial pressures and in real terms reducing public sector funding. As you can see from these reports, a great deal has been achieved and we have improved working alongside health, particularly in our integrated community resource teams, where thanks to digital technology, we now work much more closely with the primary care sector. We focused, progressed and improved in many areas, including carers, learning disability groups, and of course homelessness, where the entire team has been restructured. Obviously, my main area of responsibility is community support services, providing care for adults, but I am aware Rhiann, acting as Head of Children's Services within the blended education and children's services, have achieved the same good quality services for our vulnerable children. I was particularly pleased and proud to step in for the launch of the new innovative children's centre, BLYNYDDOL, in collaboration with Conway County Borough Council, Denbighshire and BCU to give a wraparound individual care for children and families. These annual reports from our Director of Social Services reflect well on the teams working across social care in Denbighshire, and I'm sure Nicola would be the first to say her report is impressive because of the excellent and dedicated staff working tirelessly to bring the best services possible for the residents of Denbighshire. After the pandemic, life will never be quite the same. No one of us really know what the future will hold, but I am confident Denbighshire Social Services, adults and children, will continue to adapt and improve and provide the care necessary for our residents. Many thanks to the report authors led by Anne Lloyd. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Diolch yn fawr, Bobby, you're doing excellent work. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Hugh Hilditch, ti eisiau deud gair?
I think Councillor Feely has covered it superbly, well articulated as usual. So I think I'll just hand over to Nicola. Diolch.
Bob luck, Nicola. I hope you enjoy
Diolch, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I start, please, by thanking not only the lead members, but all councillors for their support for children and adult social care. That's been an ongoing support, and obviously during the last 2 years has been even more important and enabled us to care for and support our most vulnerable in our communities. So diolch to all. Chair, we have 2 reports in for you today, and I have Anne and James who are online as well to support in any of the detailed questions that you might have. As Bobby said, we didn't have to produce a report for 1920 because of the pandemic. However, we felt it appropriate to catch up and produce that report because you know, we're very proud of what we have achieved and what we continue to achieve during what has been the most difficult and unprecedented of times. I'm incredibly proud of our workforce, and when I say that, I include all of our informal carers, our foster carers, and those that provide services on our behalf in the independent, voluntary and teachers. This truly has been a team effort, and I think it's been absolutely remarkable and a testament to all of those who work within this field, that even in the most difficult of times, when their own individual health, their families and their friends were affected by this, that they stepped up in ways that they could to assist us. Not everybody could be redeployed onto the front line, but people took opportunities to assist in other ways. And more often than not, it was those people behind the scenes that were not necessarily seen throughout this. But I can testify not only from within our own social care services, but also across the council and across our communities, people stepped forward and into roles assisting us to deliver for our most vulnerable. So I'm really pleased to present these reports. Looking back over those last 2 years, it really is truly remarkable just how much we have achieved, and those things that possibly didn't progress at the pace we wanted, we're very aware of and we are taking forward now. What I would say is obviously we're still living with COVID. Whilst there is so much talk about recovery, we are still dealing with increased cases and transmission, both within our communities, but also within some of our care settings as well. So again, a testament to our workforce that they've continued, even though it must be acknowledged just how exhausted that they are at this moment in time. So I've probably spoken enough now. I would like to offer these 2 reports to scrutiny and would welcome a thorough scrutiny by members of this committee. As always, I'm very interested when members take an interest within our social care services. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr I chi, arbennig, diolch yn fawr iawn. Right, the meeting's open to you, fellow county councillors. Agored I chi gyd. Who's going to start us off? I can't ask Mary Gloyd Davies, even though he's got his hand up, because he's not till the second time. We'll start with Councillor Paul Penlington, please.
Chair, thank you, Nicola. I'm going to dispute that this is a very good report, so I'll apologise for that. I'm not disputing the fact that the staff have done excellent work during the pandemic, and the staff members have asked them to do. There are 2 staff members there. There are 2 staff members photographed here who I saw at the food bank twice a week throughout the pandemic, which is not really part of the DCC role, but they were doing sterling work. The reason I'm proud perhaps being critical of the report is I don't think there's enough detail for us to get our teeth into. It's sort of great headline news, but there's not much we can scrutinise, shall we say. As I said earlier, I've got a particular interest in young carers. There's not much detail about the number of young carers we're reaching and the work we're doing with them. For example, something like 5% of young people are young carers. If you work down through our population, that's something like 1,000 young people in Derbyshire will be a young carer. I'd like to know how many of those are we reaching, and then conversely, how many we're not reaching, what efforts we're making to reach those we're not reaching, what support are we doing or giving to the ones we are reaching. There's comments about service users being asked for their feedback. Young carers are mentioned there, but I have no idea what their feedback was. There's comments on staff receiving training on working with young carers, which staff, what sort of training, who provided that training. So yeah, I'd like a lot more detail really. So that's more of a general ramble than a question. Perhaps Nicola could respond to. Thank you.
Diolch, Nicola. Can you respond, please? Or Anne, diolch yn fawr.
Yes, so thank you for that comment and those questions. I think that's a fair judgment, Paul. It doesn't by any stretch of the imagination drill down into the detail. If it did, we'd probably be here for a week going through the information, because the services across children's and adults are vast. And, you know, more than happy at any time to take any of those specific issues into more detail, and happy to scrutinise those either through our corporate parenting forum or through any of the scrutiny committees. More than happy to do that. We do follow a format that is suggested by Welsh Government. It is meant to be a document that is accessible for the public, so there is a balance to be had in terms of the level of information contained within the report versus the detail that I'm sure that some of you would want on specific issues. But as I say, more than happy for us to take any of those issues that members may have an interest in more detail at any point in time. Can I just ask James, in terms of the detail, the question, I hope James can hear me, I think he's struggling with some of the audio. The question around the number of young carers that we're aware of and the number of young carers that we support, how do we do that, but also what are our concerns about those young carers that we're not aware of?
Okay. We at the moment, through sort of social services and Families First, we commission a young carers support service from an organisation called Credu Young Carers, who Denbighshire, Conwy and Wrexham work together to commission that for young carers in those 3 local authorities. So that's the sort of the largest element of support. That service every year supports 2 across in Denbighshire. The figures from, you know, on average over the last couple of years been around 250 children. Sorry, am I is that any better?
Yes, it is. Diolch.
All right, sorry about that. Did you catch any of that at all, or shall I just repeat it?
I caught everything. I don't know about the others.
I caught most of it. You only went out for a second or two.
Oh, did I? Okay, all right. So what we tend to do is we also have the Children and Family Support Gateway, and we also do some outreach work with schools, in education and schools in Denbighshire, to identify young carers and try and identify those children out there who have a caring responsibility, who we might not have missed, or who might not have been referred in by other agencies or families. So we've got proactive elements out there to try and identify young carers within education and get those referred into the Young Carers Support Service. Every year we put a chunk of money in to Wicked as well, which also supports holiday activities, outreach, things, you know, going away on events. Very difficult last year during COVID, but in previous years they'll do trips to London, they'll have trips out to outward bound centres, things like that. there are regular sort of group meetings that are run across all across Denbighshire, for young carers on a regular basis. And during lockdown, that's been maintained in a virtual way in the main, but that's starting to open up again now. Does that answer your question? Do you want me to get more specific detail, or was there another question you had along anything I've just said?
No, that was a lovely answer. Thank you. If you could give me more detail, but via email or something when it's convenient.
I can. We meet with Wicked on at least sort of like a quarterly basis to review the contract, but we're actually in regular contact with them very frequently on issues like the promotion of the Young Carers card, the national ID card for carers, and on a variety of other issues around activity, links with education and things like that. So they're one of the third sector agencies that I feel we've got a really strong positive relationship with.
Lovely, diolch yn fawr.
I'll provide something for you though, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, James. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Nawr te, cynghorydd Ellie Chard, a wedyn Martin, a wedyn Andrew. Over to you, Ellie.
And first of all, I'd like to say that my daughters were sort of my carers when under their age of 10. They would sometimes try and wake me up to get me out of a diabetes hypo, but I never ever classed them as my young carers. But I do know, Paul, that in school I used to know lots of children who were carers, and I always highly supported them all. Anyway, my question is this morning, how are you getting on with the improving access, skills and confidence of vulnerable citizens who could benefit from digital technology-based care and support solutions? And also, how are you getting on and developing a new innovative pathway? I've got an idea about that. So that's 2 questions, Nicola. Okay.
Okay, I heard your first one. Unfortunately, you broke up on the second one.
Oh, bother. Bother. Where
Can you
am
ask
I?
the second one again?
Yeah, hang on. I'll stop me video. That's it. Yeah. Okay. Second one is, how is the service getting on and developing a new integrated early years service and pathway? So that's the second question. The first one was about the IT with the vulnerable. And the second one is the integrated early years, because I've got a big solution to that question. All right, but I'll shut up now and you can answer, and I'll.
Okay. The first question, a really good question. How have we improved and used digital? I think, if I'm really honest, before COVID, we had plans about how we might utilize technology, digital solutions. But progress was probably slower than we would have liked. And I think that as much about our concerns and apprehensions about that as it was around people that we work with and we support not being quite sure about what those technologies might mean. What COVID did was actually kind of force our hand a little bit. We had to start using those technologies to support the way that we worked with people, the way that we delivered services. And I think, it allowed us a freedom that we hadn't previously had, because we were, as I say, our hand was forced. But actually, we've seen some real improvements. And, if there's anything positive to come out of this last 18 months, it has been how, for some people, not for all, but for some people, actually having access to that different form of support using digital technology has actually given them a different freedom, a different kind of support that actually is more aligned now to what their wants are, what their choices are about. And we've got lots of examples in the report, as you'll know, from both adult services and children's services. So, COVID kind of put us in a position where we had to use technology, but actually it has been a real opportunity. And I think it's a platform now from which we want to continue to grow and develop. What I would say is, though, those kind of digital interfaces are not for everybody, and we do understand that, we do recognise that. COVID has made that difficult because we haven't always been able to see everybody face to face, although when we've had to, we have done that. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I think, as I say, it has given us an opportunity to try new ways of working at a pace we hadn't previously had before. And in the main, that has been really positively received, not only by people that we care and support for, but also by our staff as well. In terms of the second question, the new integrated early years pathway, I'm going to ask James if he can come in on that one. He's much more closer to that than I am.
Thank you. I think the integrated early years pathway is a sort of a Welsh government initiative that's been running for a while now, isn't it? But I think we've already in Denbighshire taken quite a lot of steps to integrate some aspects of the early years pathway within the local authorities remit during the merger of education and children's services. So there are several examples of where we've sort of merged our integrated early years pathways around things like Flying Start and our early education support, and that is already sort of what we've done in terms of internal integration on the early years pathway, just to make it a much more smoother transition for those families that are experiencing the support that's coming from that tier of things. I'm always keen to listen to more ideas about how we could integrate further. I think we're exploring at the moment with Conwy, putting in a bid to try out new ideas for how we might further integrate the early years pathway that transformationally. And I have a meeting actually later on this month with individuals who are leading on this project across North Wales. So the 6 local authorities are getting together to look at what each local authority is trying to sort of build up a bit of a plan about how we can approach taking the best learning out of the different models that people are trying to implement. We've also got the same challenge as local authorities in integrating with health on early years, which is something that all 6 authorities are very keen to do across North Wales. So that's sort of a very short update for where we are at the moment, but I'd be very interested in hearing Councillor Chard's ideas as well.
But to you, Ellie.
Oh yes. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I saw a girl from Christ the Word who works in early years, has been there 20 odd years, and she said, "Oh, Ellie, the Flying Start." I mean, she said she was trying to explain that the little 2 and 3 year olds are coming to school, and she reckons it would help the parents, mums and dads, to go there and sit for 2 or 3 hours with the children, playing, language skills, social skills, because this is what's needed, and especially the language. I mean, they're probably not talking to them that much at home. They're putting the box on in the corner and dim siarad, and I just feel that maybe the parents should be coming into these sessions in Flying Start. So James, where's James? Yeah, James, no picture of you, but just that's my idea, and that's come from a girl who's worked in early years for donkey's years, and I do support her because I think it needs to be done. These children are going to be struggling trying to see little words in books at age 8, and we don't want that. We want them looking at books and speaking and socializing, eating their meals with knives and forks and things, and parents showing them how to do that. Anyway, I'll shut up now, but that was my idea. Thank you.
Da iawn, da iawn. Dwi'n eilio bopeth ydych chi wedi dweud, Ellie. Da iawn chi, ardderchog. Over to you, Martin. Nice to see you back. You haven't been well. Nice to see you here. Diolch yn fawr.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I missed that then. Were you saying?
I said, nice to see you here. You have.
Oh, right, thank you. Okay, thank you. Well, I wasn't quite sure whether you were talking to me or somebody else. Apologies. First and foremost, Mr. Chairman, just to say that can I ask Nicola to pass on her thanks to her team for what has been a very difficult 18 months and 2 years. And I know as a councillor, I think all councillors around this forum will have, I know my inbox and my telephone has been ringing constantly with people looking for help and support during these difficult times. And I appreciate that possibly one of the departments in county that's probably felt the brunt of that is social services. So, you know, can you pass on our thanks to everybody? Because I know that there were difficult times. I know, you know, at some points, even senior staff are rolling up their sleeves, you know, to work in some of our nursing homes as support staff, and that must be appreciated by us as councillors. Going back to the report, there's one of the things, obviously, as you rightly said, Nicola, if you went into great detail in this, it would be an extremely lengthy report. Already we've got 122 pages here for 2 reports for 2 years, but it does give us the opportunity to look at this and say as councillors whether we want to bring anything out of this report to scrutiny. And that's, you know, the point I would make. Could I suggest that it would be useful at the end of these reports to have an index of terms? Because as I went through this report, I thought, well, what is edge of care services? What do we mean by that? There's a piece about it, but it doesn't say what we mean by edge of care services. Moving with Dignity project. It would be nice to just have a sentence to say what that is. I picked up a comment on page 46, and apologies, by the way, I haven't quoted the page numbers because I was looking at these on my iPad, and I think they're different to those on the actual laptop, which doesn't help matters. But on page 46, it said that there was a statement to say to offer the solely whole understanding comes before change. Now, as a layman, I don't know what that means. And so to scrutinise that, it would be useful at the end of the report to have just an index of what some of these things are. I also picked out in 4.7, the assistance technology. What do we mean by paraseal and pepper robotics? Again, it would be useful just to have a quick sentence at the bottom of this report as an index to say what that was. It may be something quite fantastic, but I'm not sure what we mean by those. And I appreciate that in the report itself, it's difficult to go into great detail, but a small index at the end would be useful for lay people like ourselves. Obviously, if you work in social services, you'd know what all those things were. Going into questions, on page 39, 4.7% of children in our child protection register were re-registered this time. So that says that 4.7% of children on our register have come back to us. I just want to ask the question, it's an increase on previous years. Do we assume that this is a COVID effect again, because people are isolated and there may be, you know, possibly cases of children being abused or whatever, and how are we dealing with that? Page 41, community navigators. Could we as councillors do more to work with our community navigators? During the lockdown, I did speak to ours because we were getting a lot of feedback from people who were lonely and feeling isolated. So, you know, could we as councillors do more on that one? And then carers, page 30 of and this is the first report, I hasten to add, because some of it's duplicated in the second, that, you know, again, during COVID, it was coming to our attention that there were more carers out there care. So have we been updating our register? Because I think there's a lot of carers who are under the radar, who are working, you know, with families, with elderly members of the family, or young people looking after their parents. Have we been updating our lists on that? And then finally, page 59, and this is another one of these terms, mind of my own app. That sounds fantastic. I presume this is an app on people's mobile phones or their tablets for young people. And obviously with young people being happy with technology, this is a great way forward. But can I just ask, the children that this are targeted at, are we sure that they've got the apps? Thank you.
Martin, there's a few questions for you there, Nicola, Anne, and James.
Okay. Firstly, thank you for your thanks for the team. I certainly will pass that on. And as I said at the beginning, you know, the support from all councillors during this last 18 months has been really positive. I think I take on board your comments around some of the terms that we've used within the report. We've tried not to use jargon, but what we have done is make reference to various projects names and training tool names without necessarily the explanation of what those are. So I think that's certainly something we can go back and have a look at and potentially add that glossary at the end, which would be a helpful suggestion. So in terms of some of your questions, the re-registration, I think that was a really good question. We always see a small level of re-registration, and that is because of the nature of the children that are originally on the register and the situation that those families find themselves living in. So there will always be a small element of re-registration. There was a slight increase, and was that because of COVID? Possibly. I think, you know, some of these families, their situations are incredibly complex and at times chaotic. That has no doubt for some been exacerbated by COVID. But could we be certain that it was or wasn't COVID related? I think it would be difficult for us to say that across the board. It would be individual family circumstances that we would need to look at. What I can say in terms of safeguarding referrals for children during COVID, we in Denbighshire actually didn't have the increase of referrals at the level that was seen across Wales and across other parts of the UK. And I genuinely believe, and you know, we've got the data to prove that that was because of the work that we did at the start of the pandemic. That was supported by our structure of that joint children's and education department. So at the very beginning, our team sat down and they looked at all of our children, all the children that our schools knew, all the children that our children's social care knew. And we devised a plan for those children that we were most concerned about. And that support was there from the beginning throughout. And some of that continues now because, as I said at the beginning, we're not quite out of it yet. So, you know, I think, again, a testament to the work that we've done in Denbighshire and our structure and our approach to that whole child and family approach. The Mind of My Own app, can I just ask James to mention about that one?
Hello. Okay, so yeah, the Mind of My Own app is a tool, and it's a tool for communicating and capturing the views of young people. I've just had the newsletter that we put together on this fairly recently. So, you know, we've got about 130 children who are using it on a regular basis, and we receive an awful lot of statements through that. So that's a statement is a comment or a view a child has about their care and support. just to let you know, we did, Denbighshire received an award, a Voxcon award in May 2021, because Denbighshire is the second highest usage of this app in the country at the moment. So we are quite a high user of it, and there are quite a high number of our children who choose to use it. It is a voluntary method, but it's just one of the many methods we use for communicating with children. Does that answer your question on the Mind of My Own side of things?
Well, the point I was trying to make was that it's an excellent idea, and youngsters love technology, but the group of children we're trying to involve in this, have they got access to technology? I think that was the point I was making. Have they got the access? I'm assuming a lot of this is to do with children in foster care and things like that, so probably they do have some form of technology support. But if there are other children out there, how do we know that they can use this app and have they got the technology? Thank you.
So the technology side of things is always a question. That's always something we'd explore. If the children didn't have the technology to use the app, as I said, it's only one of the methods. If we've got a digital a digital access issue, then we particularly during the last 18 months with COVID, we have tried to identify the children who might need that extra support. For example, looked after children, the care leavers, also some of the families in Flying Start who don't have access to the digital technology. And, we have put a significant amount of funding from various sources into making sure that people have access to laptops, phones, Wi-Fi hubs to be able to use digital technology if they prefer to use it, if that's the way they choose to communicate. With our children, obviously, the app is aimed at a certain cohort of children. It's obviously not suitable for younger children to use that method, and the children have to have a certain level of ability to use it. So there are actually two apps. There's a one Mind of My Own app, and there's the Express Mind of My Own app. So the Express app is aimed more for children with disabilities. But again, the social workers work with the children to ensure they've got access to the technology and they know how to use it in order to be able to give their views if they want to use technology to do so.
Ia hapus, Martin? Iawn, diolch yn fawr.
In terms of the other questions that Martin asked, community navigators, I'm sure we would be open to more support from counsellors. And in terms of carers, yes, we did become aware of carers that we previously hadn't known about because of the pandemic. Anne, is there anything you'd like to add on how we've used that information and updated our carers lists?
Yeah, so obviously, there was more people came forward because during COVID their caring situation became, almost at crisis point if somebody, developed COVID or whatever. So we did become much more aware, and we've also tried, obviously, working with our partners such as NUCAS to get messages out there and try and circulate as much information to carers to encourage other carers to come forward to get support. So whilst a lot of services maybe weren't running face to face, there was a lot of support going on online as well. So, what we've done is with the feedback we've had and we've carried on the work to make sure we're engaging and getting messages out to as many carers as possible. But recognise that lots of people don't deem themselves necessarily as carers, even though they are looking after people. So I think there's still quite a hidden population of carers in Denbighshire that we probably still need to get to. But certainly, we've carried on the work with carers. That has definitely not stopped during COVID, and it's one of them I think that's probably progressed again during the last 18 months. But yeah, we've certainly had more people come forward to engage in services because they were forced to because of the situation, I think. Thanks.
Diolch yn fawr iawn i'r tri o'noch chi. A rwan dwi'n mynd ymlaen at y cynghorydd Andrew Thomas. Croeso i chi, Andrew, efo'ch cwestiwn.
Thank you, Chair. I do appreciate that these reports can't drill down into the detail, but I find they're very good in getting an appreciation of what you've achieved and managed to achieve. Well done on that score. Just a couple of points, really. On the financial side, I appreciate you've had some very strong financial pressures, and we just get the rather sort of glib statement that these will be managed within budget. Does that mean that you've had efficiencies within your budget, or does that mean you've been redirecting your work? And also you say that you will be able to have partnership funding, possibly. What is that, and is it a reality? So those are a little more on the financial side, please. And the second one, I was disturbed to see that staff are stretched to breaking point. Is that really true? I mean, were staff getting sick? Were staff actually breaking down? And if so, how did you manage it? Because I think that's a very, very serious statement that is made, stretched to breaking point. And the third one is just for my own education. Community resource teams set up in Railwith and probably now in Denby and Prestatyn. What about places like St Asaph, Rhuddlan and Llangollen? Are these covered by it? And what does the community resource team do? Thank you.
Okay, very good questions, Andrew, and I will do my best to answer them. So you're absolutely right. Social care have been under incredible financial pressures, as have all local government services, for a number of years. But to a certain extent, we have to live within our means, and the council has to balance its budget. And in doing so, we have to make, or you as councillors have to make some difficult decisions in terms of priorities. And I would again thank you for the additional funding and that kind of ring fencing of funding that you as councillors have agreed for the last few years for social care services, because that has supported us. However, you know, with more money, we could do more. You know, I'm not going to hide that, because that would be a fact. You know, that's very true. In terms of efficiencies, every department in the council has had to make efficiencies, including adults and children's. But that has been in terms of efficiencies that have been appropriate. That has been offset, obviously, by that additional investment. But where we've tried to put that additional investment has been into sustainable services and new ways of working, which hopefully over time will themselves bring further efficiencies to the way we practice and support people. We do rely heavily in both children's and adult services on grant monies, and most, if not all, of those grant monies are now under the umbrella of what we call partnership funding, and not necessarily come directly to us as the local authority, but come either via the health board or through the regional partnership board, which is something that myself and Councillor Bobby Feely represent Denbighshire on. We in Denbighshire do very well from partnership monies, I have to say, and I think, you know, we've utilised those monies in very creative ways. An example is BLYNYDDOL that Bobby mentioned at the beginning. That project, the build is being funded through Integrated Care Fund capital monies, which is partnership monies across local authorities and health. And the revenue for the multidisciplinary team is coming through the Healthier Wales Transformation Programme monies. So they are real funds, they are time limited. So that, you know, we are looking now at exit strategies and how we redirect core funding to support some of those initiatives moving forward. But I think, you know, myself and Rhian and Phil ensure that when we're around that table negotiating Denbishire's proportion of those monies, you know, I can quite happily tell you we do well. You know, we fight our corner, as you would expect us to for our residents. So that is something we will continue to do. But it is a challenge for us, because with those funding streams being time limited, it often means that our recruitment is time limited, and therefore that brings with itself challenges as well. Staff are stretched, staff were getting sick. Yeah, we had levels of sickness in Denbighshire within our frontline services as a result of COVID and as a result of the pressure that COVID brought on our workforce. That's absolutely true. What did we do about that? We did absolutely everything that we could in terms of providing wraparound support for people, occupational therapy, employment assistance programs, our managers and all of us, you know, there on call, supporting our staff 24/7. And that has taken its toll. You know, I'm taking its toll on myself personally, and on Phil, Rhian, and Anne and James who are on the call today. But it was what we had to do at the time, and it is a testament to that approach to public service, which is something that runs through the core of what we do. It is a long-term concern of mine that we will lose people. You know, we're already starting to see in other departments of the council, people making different life choices now as a result of what they've been through in the last 18 months. And that's something that we're going to have to work through and understand the implications of as well. So yes, staff were stretched. Yes, staff were at breaking point, and some did break down, but we were there to catch them, and we supported them getting back on their feet. And you know, credit to everybody that worked through what has been a really difficult situation. We lost colleagues. You know, some of our colleagues died. We lost residents. You know, there were days I would quite have happily got back in bed and pulled the duvet over. But I had to get up, had to get forward, and our leadership team led throughout this. So testament to them all. Community resource teams, I'm going to pass over to Anne to answer that one. But you're right, they do cover geographical patches, not just the areas within which they're physically located.
Could I just thank you for that, Nicola? Much appreciated.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, in relation to the community resource teams, although we've got 4 community resource teams and they're based in Prestatyn, Rhyl, Denbigh and Ruthin, they do cover the whole of Denbighshire. So that the community resource team in Ruthin obviously covers the south of the county, and we have outreach in, you know, we're covering the whole area, Llangollen, Corwin, right down. The Denbigh one covers the sort of mid area. The Rhyl one goes into, you know, Rhuddlands. We cover the whole area from them 4 teams, and the reason they're split like that is because we're working closely with our health colleagues as well, and we try and work in line with the sort of GP clusters, the health services. So although they're based in them 4 locations, their outreach covers the whole of the county, and it's made up of our own social workers, social care practitioners, occupational therapists, community navigators, carers, workers, dementia support workers, into then health staff, district nurses, health occupational therapists, physiotherapists, health and social care workers. So everybody coming together to provide a seamless health and social care support in the community, but right across the county from them 4 bases. Does that help?
Yep. Thank you. Yeah.
Andrew. I did have Steve Gadd's hand up. I wonder if he wants to say a word. No?
Diolch, Chair. Yeah, I did put it down because I think Nicola's covered everything, but I was just going to on a technical matter of the budget, we do treat social care as, we acknowledge that it's an area where there are significant pressures, so we treat it slightly separately. We do give obviously all the inflation they require for all the normal, you know, the increase in pay, for example, and they obviously are asked for an element of efficiencies each year. But we do, the budget board considers a submission by them in the autumn, which estimates, we recognise that there is going to be an annual pressure in this area. and that's reviewed and obviously included in the budget proposals. And as Nicola indicated, last year 2.4 million extra was put into the budget for that as part of that process. The year before it was 2.6 million. And we will go through the same process again, and it really is just trying to assess the need for the current year, for the future years, so we've got the right budget for the spend. As Nicola says, I'm sure they could do a lot more if we, if we gave them more. So it is a judgment call, but there is a process in place for social care in particular.
Yes,
Chair, Steve is well aware that I always say to him, I could spend any money if he wants to redirect it towards social care.
Surprise.
I think Bobby's wanting to come in.
Yeah,
She's put in the chat.
Bobby and I are all right. Don't you worry, Nicola. Okay. Bobby, your turn now. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple of things to what Nicola said, because I was in a meeting yesterday along with other cabinet members across Wales with the Deputy Minister Julie Morgan, and Eva, she announced another 40 million for older people with complex needs. The hardship fund has been extended till April 22. We've also had Welsh Government, if you like, funding towards carers respite, desperately needed carers respite. I know 3 million is not masses of money, but it helps a little bit. And we've also had an injection of cash for homelessness to help us with the crisis in homelessness, which has increased during the pandemic. I just was adding a few points.
Excellent. Da iawn. Can I thank Nicola for her honesty when she answered Andrew's question there. Ardderchog. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Peter Pendergast, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of comments. I'll be as quick as I can, but I've got a question as well. In regard to carers, I actually personally completed the survey because unfortunately I was a carer at the time. And on page 8, one of the quotes from a carer was how they found just how little information is given to you when you become a carer, and while you're working, how there is little time to search for it. I have to, agree with the reports that's been sent out. The booklet that's been produced from Nicola and her colleagues was very, very useful and actually drilled down to what you need as a carer, who you contact, etc. So that was a really useful exercise. In regard to the Wicked films, theatre, etc., I found there was an issue with IT for quite a few of, shall we say, our less well-off residents. Unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, part of my area is one of the most deprived, and I found and still find there is an issue in regard to IT equipment. So although James has answered the question generally, my question is, and more than happy to come back to me away from today's meeting, but I'd like to know exactly what help was actually given to help resolve issues with the supply of IT equipment on the 2 most deprived wards in Rhyl. That'd be an interesting question for me personally as a councillor, but I'd like to compliment you on the report, Nicola, and your staff. I'd also like to compliment Denbighshire Leisure staff who during COVID were supporting the rest of your colleagues, and I know personally they came here quite a few times to make sure that everything was okay, there was any support, any information we needed. So, well done to the whole team. Thank you.
Nicola?
Diolch. Yes, in terms of IT equipment, I know there was some detailed discussion with Geraint at scrutiny, where he talked in much more detail about how schools had also worked in terms of ensuring that access to IT equipment. So obviously working together, education and social care, we were very conscious of ensuring that the most vulnerable and those that potentially didn't have access to it either got it through school or through social care. That being said, there was a delay in the supply of IT equipment because the whole of the country was after the same resources. So there was a wait for some of that equipment, and you know, we're still, even now, some of the orders that have gone through have not yet been fully received. And we also know that some of the equipment that we handed out, we will not get back. You know, that's the reality again of some of the families that we work with and some of the families that we support. And you know, there were some difficult decisions to make for some of those families. You know, potentially a piece of equipment that has a street value for some other street substance, and therefore was the child actually going to benefit from that, or were there other ways of supporting that child and having access to people and others that they needed to? And in a very small minority of cases, we actually chose purposefully not to provide IT because of issues such as county lines and grooming, which we know can happen online, and we know which of our children are most vulnerable to that as well. So I can't say with all honesty every child in your wards, Peter, was issued with IT, but we certainly did our best, and we prioritised what we could within the risks that we work with on a daily basis. We can probably provide you with much more detail in terms of the actual numbers, if that would be of benefit to you, but I suppose that the cold numbers wouldn't necessarily give you that information that sits behind some of that.
Nicola, can I come in there?
Yes, you.
Just to answer Peter's question. Nicola's statement that we haven't provided every child is correct. However, we have provided every child who's asked for it, and every home that have asked for it. So if there is 2 children in the home, we won't have provided IT for both, but we would have provided access for one piece of kit for the 2. And you know, the example is real high, where they all took the Chromebooks home, for example. You know, there has been no point where we have refused anybody IT, and we've also worked very, very closely with enabling, if they've got a PlayStation or a PlayStation, or what's the other one called? I can't remember. Paul and Pendleton will know.
Xbox.
Xbox, that's the one. That's the one. That if there is a way that you just buy a keyboard, which is a couple of pounds, attach that, and then you can go through the Google Classroom stuff. So the statement is that we haven't provided everyone is correct, but we haven't let anybody go without either. So I think it's really important, because that is something that we're really proud of in Denbighshire, that you know, we have been in touch with these children on a regular basis, and as Nicola alluded to earlier, that's why our referral trend during COVID bucked the national trend, because everybody else was going sky high, and the contact that our staff, teachers, social services had with our children made the difference.
Thank you both for that reply. That's great.
Da iawn. Drosodd ata chi rwan, Cynghorydd Paul Pendleton, a bydda i'n gofyn ambell i gwestiwn hefyd wedyn, ac mi geith y Cynghorydd Mary Lloyd Davies dod mewn. Mae wedi bod yn aros yn wych am gyfnod hir. Diolch.
Diolch, Chair. Couple of comments. I would agree that Denbighshire staff have been remarkable during the pandemic. Certainly in the early point, in the first few weeks when everything's a bit chaotic, the single point of access was an excellent resource, and it worked wonderfully. I had residents panicking all over the place about all sorts of things. Single point of access resolved my questions, all the residents' questions, very quickly. The 2 staff members I mentioned in the report are actually, where have they gone? Single point of access coordinator and community navigator. Those 2 people were absolutely sterling in Prestatyn. I think they should be praised beyond belief, along with all the DCC staff.
You're breaking up, Paul.
Along with lots of the staff are doing similar stuff. I know there were WhatsApp voluntary groups run by staff. There were staff giving up their own time. It's brilliant. It really was. I would like to briefly agree with Martin Holland, which is unusual, but I'm going to on this occasion. I do understand most of the terminology because I've worked in the third sector extensively, but Pepper Robotics, Paraseal, REM pods are things I'm not familiar with, and I don't expect a great long answer now, but it might be nice if we had a sort of a demonstration of them at some point, just for our own interest. The question I'm boiling down to eventually is staff recruitment. I'm a little concerned about frontline staff. I know there's been a lot of recruitment drives to try and get frontline staff, but from what I can make out, that's not resulted in the actual recruitment of many staff. And there's also, I've heard, possibilities of staff being redeployed to take on care roles, which they were not originally employed to do. Can you tell us how the staff recruitment is going and if what I've heard is true, and respond to that, really? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for pointing out that you had some very good experiences of our staff and that they were helpful, and they'll be really pleased to hear that. Staff recruitment is an issue. There's actually an event taking place as we speak, another one, trying to recruit staff. You're right, we've had a number of recruitment sessions recently and we haven't been as successful as we'd hoped. It's something we'll continue to do. It's not a Denbighshire unique issue. It's across the region, it's across Wales, it's across the whole of the UK. And whilst, you know, COVID in many ways brought social care onto the national agenda and the hearts of our communities, I don't think that has continued the way we see for the NHS. So, you know, really grateful that clap for carers and that acknowledgement of social care for what seemed like a first actually brought us on par with colleagues in the NHS, but we're already seeing that change and that emphasis change again. And we do lose caring staff, frontline staff to the NHS because of differences of terms and conditions and pay. But also we're losing people from the sector. There is a natural turnover anyway. Pre-COVID, recruitment was an issue. It was an issue nationally. We in Denbighshire involved in the development of the National Workforce Strategy for Social Care. Also very involved in the Regional Workforce Board, looking at addressing these are all national issues. Social Care Wales have been running a We Care campaign for a couple of years now, trying again to show the wide range and the fulfilling roles that social care can offer. But it comes down fundamentally to pay, terms and conditions. And if you can get the same salary and 10% off your groceries, why would you choose to help somebody to wash their most intimate parts when you can go down the road to a supermarket, have the same rates of pay and get 10% off your shopping? So there's something around that fair equity of pay and conditions. And I've been very fortunate in the last 18 months to be part of the Ministerial Fair Care Working Group, working with Welsh Government, with unions and with employer representatives to look at and provide evidence to Welsh Government around what that fair pay, terms and conditions should be for social care. In terms of redeployment during COVID, yes, we did. We looked through all of our workforce in the council and looked at if people had experience around providing frontline care, and those that did stepped in and supported us. That also people stepped in and redeployed into roles that then freed up people in other roles in social care to then move on to the front line as well. So it was a variety of tasks. And as somebody mentioned earlier, myself, Phil, Anne, and other managers also at times went out and into care homes. You know, we've very fortunate to have been able to have had the experience in our past careers to have done that frontline work. And when there was a shortage and there was a need to, we stepped in and filled that breach. Nobody had to do that. That was goodwill. And I think, you know, as we've already said, thank you so many times to them, but the ability of our staff to recognise and step in to support the most vulnerable when needed has been absolutely tremendous. I think I've answered your questions, Paul. Is there anything I missed? Sorry.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Diolch.
Ardderchog, Nicola. Diolch yn fawr Paul hefyd am y cwestiwn. Cwestiwn gyda i rwan, gawn ni fwy o wybodaeth am wrthyn-y-ddôl, os gwelwch yn dda. Mae'n edrych yn brosiect diddorol iawn. Gai hofyn hefyd am sefyllfa efo pobl sy'n byw hefo anabledd, enwedig oedolion. Mae rhai ohonyn nhw, wrth gwrs, wedi gorfod aros adre oherwydd yr haint arbennig yma. Ac dwi'n poeni amdanyn nhw, wrth gwrs, yn naturiol. Lle maen nhw'n mynd i gael mwy o wybodaeth gennych chi am ei sefyllfa? Gai foi'r syniad ym eich pen chi beth sy'n digwydd efo meifod. Maen nhw'n poeni yn arw, enwedig rhieni y bobl yma sydd yn mynd i meifod wod. Beth yw'r sefyllfa yno? A da chi'n dweud fan hyn yn Saesneg, everyone is supported to live in homes that meet their needs. Ydy pobl sydd hefo anabledd yn byw mewn tai sydd yn dda iddyn nhw, sydd wedi cael ei adeiladu ar eu mwyn nhw. Ac hefyd, beth am daliadau i bobl sydd yn byw hefo anabledd? Maen nhw'n teimlo nad ydyn nhw'n cael cyfle i fynd allan i weithio yn yr awyr iach, ac maen nhw'n cael cyflog da. A hefyd, maen nhw eisiau mwy o gyfle i weithio oddi fewn i Sir Ddinbych ei hun, yn yr adran Hamdden, er enghraifft, ac hefyd yn Countryside Services, gwasanaethau gwledig. Dipyn o gwestiynau fan'na i chi, Nicola. Diolch.
Okay. BLYNYDDOL, we have a board that actually we have two of our members on that board. So Councillor Hugh Hilditch-Roberts as the lead member and Councillor Christine Marsden as a scrutiny representative are on the board of BLYNYDDOL. As it was mentioned earlier, it's a new build, a residential assessment unit. It's a joint project between Conwy, Denbighshire and the Health Board, and it will provide therapeutic short-term residential support for our children. It's something we've wanted to do for a long time, and we were fortunate to secure grant money funding to enable us to do that. It's an opportunity for us to provide support to our children locally, so that it minimises disruption to them and it prevents us having to place children out of county or out of country even. It is a new model that we've been able to test. We have the multidisciplinary team in place and they are working with children and families now, and the residential assessment unit is being built. Certainly happy to provide you with more detail on that. We can either do that in a written form or at a scrutiny. It's a really exciting project and I'm really pleased about it. In terms of adults with disabilities, yes, you're absolutely right. The pandemic has been particularly difficult for adults with disabilities, and as Anne said earlier, unfortunately because of COVID rules and COVID restrictions, some of our services had to stop because we couldn't keep them open and follow the rules, and that included some of our work opportunity schemes as well. I'm going to ask Anne to come in a little just to add a bit further about that. In terms of accommodation, some of our accommodation for adults with disabilities is purpose-built. Some of it is about adapting properties that individuals reside in. They may not want to choose to move to a new build. So sometimes we do work and look to see what adaptations we can make. Anne, can I bring you in on the specific issues around MAVOD and also people's salaries for work? Is Anne still with us?
I could come in on the MAVOD.
Sorry, Nicola.
Anne's
sorry,
there.
Sorry, yeah, you can come in on MAVOD, Bobby, but just before then, the adults with disabilities that had to stay at home, I mean, we did a lot of work again to make sure they had access to IT where they could use it, and we introduced quite a lot of online sessions to try and keep people engaged, which was really difficult, but our complex disabilities team that obviously we're working with people continued that contact right through the virus. People working, we've obviously got job finders is one of our opportunities that we have within work opportunities, where we do look for placements for people, actual proper employment, and we provide support. So we have a small team that's called job finders, and they do go out, as I say, and find work placements and employment for people with disabilities. And you know, we're always looking at opportunities within the authority as to where we can possibly employ people. And I know we've had discussions before with Denbighshire Leisure to see what opportunities they could maybe provide for actual work placements, paid work placements, and we're working closely with Work in Denbighshire as well, just to see what support they can provide from an employment perspective. So people that are shown an interest in employment, where we can, we will try and support them to get paid employment that's meaningful to them. That's my background, so I'm quite passionate on that. Some of the work opportunities we're having to just work, you know, we're working through now about maybe getting some of them back open again in a safe way, but at the moment obviously we're still dealing with COVID, so that's still proven quite difficult. Bobby, do you want to come in and say anything specific about MAVOD? Because I'm aware there's a briefing note due out any day now.
Diolch yn fawr.
I was
Sorwch fi, Bobby. Ydych chi wedi anfon ychydig o bethau ar chat, os ydych chi eisiau cyflwyno'r rheini hefyd yr un pryd. Diolch.
Well, no, not it's okay about that. Anybody can see them on the chat line. No, I was just going to come in if you weren't there or you disappeared for some reason, and just to say that there has been a lot of activity and conversations about MAVOD. MAVOD is a work opportunity, one of our 4 work opportunity services in Denbigh, making wood products. As probably most of you know, it's been going for many, many years, 50 years in fact this year, and there are 24 people with learning difficulties when it's open that attends MAVOD, and there has, as part of the work opportunity services review, we've reviewed Property Task Force Golden Group. MAVOD is the last one that we're reviewing and going out to consultation on, and as a result there's been quite a lot of worried emails and phone calls to people, councillors, as well as as well as me, as well as officers, and so a briefing note has just been prepared, and it should go out today or tomorrow. It'll certainly be going out within the next 2 days, putting the facts before not only councillors but service users and their carers as well. So hopefully that will be clarifying for anybody with worries about MAVOD.
Diolch, Bobby. Are you confident that there will be a situation where these people will be back in their work experiences having these skills typical of MAVOD in the future?
Well, obviously it's been closed during the pandemic because of one of the services is open in County Hall. We're able to open that, but we haven't been able to open any of the others, including MAVOD. So hopefully when we're in a position to do so, we will obviously be able to open again.
Diolch yn fawr. Oes yna rhywun arall eisiau gofyn cwestiwn sy'n rhan o'r pwyllgor?
Arwel, can I just nod i fewn?
Cei siŵr.
Just to support what Bobby said, because myself and Bobby were in a meeting, we raised this on Monday about the work ops opportunity, and as we understand, as Bobby says, you know, it's under review what we're doing, that's fine, but the concern that I've asked for a position from Phil Gilroy and Bobby has as well is the review is the bigger picture, but the here and now is what is happening to the users at the moment, because they have been at home for so long. And, you know, for an example, I was talking to somebody yesterday that there's one individual who, what we're offering at the moment is 8 hours of walking a week because there is no work ops, but that's fine unless it rains. And then they obviously can't walk in the rain. So it's about stimulating the mind as well as occupying the time. So, and I think, you know, Bobby has a good understanding of that, and I've got every faith in Bobby that she'll get us a position where we are and that we can move forward on this.
And this is all, just to say, this is all covered within the briefing note, Hugh.
Yeah, yeah.
Diolch I Bobby a diolch I Hugh hefyd. Unrhyw un arall eisiau gofyn cwestiwn cyn bo fi'n mynd at y cynghorydd Mary Lloyd Davies. Dyma dy gyfle di, Mary. Ti wedi aros yn amyneddgar iawn.
Ddim o gwbl. Diolch yn fawr i'r cadeirydd parchus. Diolch yn fawr iawn ar o. Gai ddim am adroddiad, cynhwysfawr, dweud y gwir, a'r gwaith da wneir gan bawb yn yr adran. A gai ddiolch hefyd i'r cynghorwyr am eich craffu a holi doeth y bore yma gydag ymatebion adeiladol ac onest. A gyna i ambell i gwestiwn os gai, Mr Cadeirydd. Gynta, dwi'n tynnu sylw at tudalen 3 ar 10 yn yr adroddiad, ond tudalen 35 yn yr adroddiad llawn i'r pwyllgor. Da chi'n sôn am gwasanaeth iechyd meddwl, ac mi ofyn oedden ni, tybed be ydy'r sefyllfa mae amaethwyr yn y newyddion ar hyn o bryd ynglyn â iechyd meddwl. Gweithio ni unigol ac yn y blaen. Ac yda ni yn cyrraedd amaethwyr lleol a chefn gwlad i'w cynorthwyo. Dyna un cwestiwn. Gai droi felly i tudalen 86 a 32 yn yr adroddiad llawn felly. Ynglyn â bwthyn y ddôl, a da chi wedi tynnu sylw at hwn, Mr Cadeirydd, a mae o'n yn adeiladau syniad ardderchog, ac dwi'n siŵr yn edrych ymlaen i weld i orffen. A diolch hefyd a llongyfarchiadau, mae cydweithrediad hefo y cyngor Conwy, Sir Conwy ac Awdurdod Iechyd. Ond sa neb wedi digwydd sôn, a dwi'n yn gwybod ydych chi am roi hwn yn yr adroddiad, ddoedd weitha yn y Daily Post, Firm Buildings Kids Centre to go into administration. Mae yna rhywbeth wedi digwydd i'r cwmni yma o dde Cymru, WRU Construction, ac tybed fyddwn ni yn edrych yn graff ar hwn, oherwydd wrach fydd y gwaith ddim yn mynd ymlaen os di'r adroddiad yn gywir felly. Ond dwi'n siŵr bod chi'n edrych i mewn iddo fo, ond tybed oes mosib rhoi rhyw air bach yn yr adroddiad ynglyn â'r broblem bach yna sydd wedi codi. Ac yn ola, dwi'n diolch am cynghorydd sydd wedi codi ynglyn â geiriad. Ar tudalen 95 neu 41 yn yr adroddiad, Tidal Training to Deliver Psychological First Aid. Dwi'n yn gwybod i hwn i rhywbeth i wneud efo Traethau Cymru a'i peidio, ond wrach fysa posib cael dadansoddiad. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Mr Cadeirydd.
Diolch chi, Nicola. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, diolch, Meirig. In terms of mental health services, yes, we are very aware of there being an increased prevalence of mental health issues, particularly within rural communities and also within the farming community. and unfortunately we have seen increased incidents of suicide within those communities as well, and that's not unique to Denbighshire, that's in other rural communities across Wales. So that is something that we are cited on, and there has been various projects and work that's been done through the region, through the Together for Mental Health board, in partnership with not only local authorities and the health board, but also with third sector and other organisations that work within mental health services. There is an excellent Welsh and English booklet specifically produced for people working in the farming community and living in rural areas around mental health support, advice and signposting. And that was initially created by Conwy, but has been adapted and I think is looking to be rolled out across all of Wales. And we've certainly used that for our community as well. You're absolutely right, Meyrick. Unfortunately, the building company that had been appointed to build BLYNYDDOL has gone into administration, or is about to go into administration. We became aware of that late last week. We've been working obviously with legal advice and procurement advice on exactly what that means in terms of taking the project forward and how best to do that. That firm did win the tender, but obviously that tender process, there were other firms that bid for that work as well. So we will be meeting in the next day or two to look at the legal advice and procurement advice in terms of how we move that forward. What I can say is, fortunately, no money was actually handed over to that company, so we don't have to try and pull anything back. But it is a concern and it is a potential to delay to the build. That being said, as I said before, the multidisciplinary team is in place and are working with families now. We have been exploring alternative temporary venues because even prior to this building going into financial difficulties, we knew there would be time before it was actually built and operational, and therefore we have been exploring other opportunities for building-based support. In terms of including this in the report, the reports in front of you are for the financial years 1920 and 2021. Obviously, the situation with BLYNYDDOL at this moment in time is within this current financial year and therefore would go in next year's report. So I'm sure we'll have not only the issue, but also the solution reported in next year's report. In terms of the psychological, let me pull that way, psychological first aid, that is a training program, psychological first aid, and Tidal Training is the company that has been commissioned to deliver that. But as Martin suggested, a glossary with some of those terms explained in more details, we'll look at what we can do.
Diolch, Mr Cadeirydd. Just ychwanegedd bach, os modd cael y llyfryn sydd wedi tynnu sylw ato fo ynglyn â amaethwyr yng Nghefn Gwlad. Ac yn ail, pan bod rhaid ni aros i'r Daily Post ddeitha ni be o'n digwydd hefo yr adeilad newydd. Jyst rhyw sylw bach felly. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Nicola. You want to answer that one? No? Okay.
Yeah, so the lead members and cabinet were cited immediately as we became aware that the firm was potentially going into administration. My understanding is it hasn't actually happened yet, so we have to be careful in terms of how we kind of look at the contract and the decisions that we make moving forward. as I say, we're taking legal advice at the moment, and as soon as we have information around what our options are and what decisions are being made, then we'll inform all members. I think the difficulty is, Mayrick, at this moment in time, I don't actually know, because I've not had that sit down with legal and with Conwy to actually understand what that position is. But I know officers have been working since the initial news broke. But as I say, it's not actually gone fully into administration. My understanding is it's announced it may well do. So it's been really difficult to report because it's been a change in position. But the lead member cabinet and also Councillor Christine Marsden, who is on the board, have been made aware of the situation and will be briefed. And at a point in time, I have more detail. I will obviously share that with all councillors. And yes, I will try and get you a copy of the booklet. I'm not sure that if they're still producing hard copy prints, as with lots of things nowadays, it's online, and because of COVID, actually getting hard copy things is really quite problematic, but I will do my best for you, Mayrick.
Diolch yn fawr, Nicola, am yr atebion, a diolch i'r cadeirydd. Ond gai jyst dynnu sylw bach. Dwi'n meddwl bod y gwyn yma wedi bod, ddim yn erbyn chi, dwi'n yn gyffredinol ŵan, bod pethau'n dod i'r papur newydd a dydy'r cynghorwyr llawr gwlad ddim yn gwybod dim am y peth. Ac ydych chi, mae gennym ni drefniant lle mae pethau'n gyfrinachol, os a posib jyst nodyn bach, beth bynnag ydy o, mae'r gwyn yma yn gyffredinol i'r sir mae gennai on. Bod y pethau yma dod allan gyda papur newydd ddoe, ac da ni'n gwybod dim amdano fo. Dim ond nodyn bach sydd angen yn dweud, mae yna rhyw broblem yn codi, fe gewch chi fwy o wybodaeth nes ymlaen pen ddaw o yn ddealladwy be ydy o. Fasa hynny'n ddigon wedyn i ni wybod bod yna rhywbeth ar y gweill. Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd, da chi'n garedig iawn.
Gai jyst dod i fewn yn fan'na, Mr Cadeirydd, fel yr aelod yn gyfrifol am gyfreithrebu a am ofal plant. Yn anffodus, fel rheol a fel arfer, fyswn ni wedi rhannu o, Meirig, ond oherwydd y sefyllfa ar ran ochrau legalities o hwn, oherwydd bod y cwmni heb fynd i fewn, a falle byd nhw ddim yn mynd i fewn, a y sybrydion ar y stryd o gein staff ddim yn swyddogol gyn y cwmni, fysyn ni mewn perigl o cael, achos yn erbyn ni fel cyngor os fysyn ni wedi cyhoeddio. So, yr funud byddai efo'r manylion yna, byddai yn cyhoeddio a byddai'n rhannu efo pawb, oherwydd mae pob aelod yn cyfri, ddim jyst y cabinet, so mae hwnna'n bwysig a nawn ni wneud hynny. So, ddim bwriad i gadw ddim byd i ffwrdd na ddim byd, jyst y sefyllfa gyfreithiol oedd rhaid i ni ddilyn.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Gawn ni symud ymlaen rwan, a diolch yn fawr i ti, Hugh, a diolch i Bobby, aelodau'r cabinet, am ei gyfraniad heddiw y bore. I symud ymlaen yn sydyn, newn ni edrych ar yr adroddiad. What is the reason for making this report? To enable members to scrutinise the draft annual reports prior to them being submitted to the Care Inspector Wales. Mae hwn wedi bod yn gyfarfod dwys a cyfarfod da, a gai ategu beth ddiwedodd y cynghorydd Mary Lloyd Davies am y gwaith ydych chi fel cynghorwyr wedi wneud y bore yma, yn gofyn cwestiynau craff iawn, da iawn chi, llongyfarchu. A gai ddiolch hefyd i Nicola a'i thîm am ei gwaith gwych maen nhw wedi wneud yn ystod y cyfnod peryglus yma hefo'r haint. I Nicola, James a Gan, am y gwaith aruthrol a'r staff i gyd. Os ydych chi'n gallu pasio y neges ymlaen iddyn nhw, Nicola, fyswn ni'n ddiolchgar iawn i chi am y gwaith gwych maen nhw wedi wneud yn wirfoddol hefyd. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi. A dwi'n gofyn i rywun gynnig bod ni'n derbyn yr adroddiadau yma am y 2 flynedd a fi, os oes rhywun yn ei gynnig o. Diolch yn fawr, Bob Murray, a yn eilwyd gan Eri. Mae pawb yn gytun, os gwelwch yn dda, diolch yn fawr iawn i chi.
Ie.
Dymuno dda i chi, Nicola. Gobeithio gewch chi ddim y cyfnod ydych chi eisiau rhoi y dwfe dros eich pen eto yn hir iawn, ac byddwch chi yn cario ymlaen efo'r gwaith yn hyderus ac yn mwynhau dipyn bach o gyfnod o wyliau rwan, fel mae'r ysgolion. Dyma'r ddwy adran sydd wedi cael ei fwyaf o ddi fewn y sir, yr adran addysg a'r adran gwasanaethau cymdeithasol oherwydd y Covid. Ond da ni'n dymuno'n dda i chi fel adran yn y dyfodol, a da ni'n siŵr yn gobeithio y gewch chi bach o wyliau rwan. Ysgolwch yn dda. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi. Os ydych chi eisiau deud gair Nicola i orffen, gewch chi wneud â chroeso.
Just to thank councillors again for their support during what has been a really difficult time, and for that, continued support for social care services in Denbighshire. The staff really do know how appreciated they are and are very proud to work for Denbighshire. Diolch.
Well, I propose now that we have a bit of a rest because Rhian here has been writing like a busy bee a long time. We deserve a rest and I need a drink. So if we come back in about 10 to 12, we won't be far from finishing. Diolch yn fawr iawn. 10 to 12.
Dudalen 107 o'r pecyn ysgynnog. A mae'r cyfarfod nesaf chi ar y 10 y fis Medi. Mi welwch chi ar fanne bod yna ddwy eitem i lawr. Un yn ymwneud, a mae'n lot o farciau cwestiwn ar honne, canlyniadau aroliadau. Wrth gwrs, dos am aroliadau, Lenny. Dwi wedi siarad efo Geraint yn addysg, ac oedd o'n dweud, yn anffodus, fi gennyn nhw ddim byd i'w adrodd, does y ddim cymarieithau na benchmarking na ddim byd yn cael ei gynnal. Felly, yn anffodus, gennyn nhw ddim byd, fedrwn nhw ddod i chi ar hwnna, a mae o'r fath yn genedlaethol yn anffodus. Felly, dwi'n gwybod yr eitem yna ar gyfer mis Medi a'r un cyfatebol ar gyfer mis Ionawr hefyd flwyddyn nesaf, lle maen nhw'r verified external examinations, fydd y ddwy yna, fydd ddim posib i cynnal nhw. Yr eitem arall sgynnoch chi ar gyfer mis Medi ydy adroddiad blynyddol cefndy healthcare, ond mae hwn yn adroddiad am 2 flynedd, tebyg i'r adroddiad da chi wedi gael yn gynharach bore yma. Doedd yna ddim adroddiad llynedd oherwydd Covid, ond mae'r adroddiad yn nhw ar ei gael rwan ac un ar gyfer y flwyddyn dwytha yma, a hefyd yr hyn maen nhw yn bwriadu drio i wneud yn y flwyddyn gyfredol. Felly mae hwnna lawr ar eich cyfer, chi'n meddwl chi gael digon amser, dwi'n meddwl, i drafod hwnna tro nesaf. Ond wrach yn y cyfamser, mi ellith rhywbeth arall godi i ben, achos mewn ffordd mae yna 2 fis a hanner yn does tan y cyfarfod yna, so mae yna bosibilrwydd y daw yna rhywbeth arall i'r fei cyn hynny. Mi gyfarwydd grŵp cadeiryddion ac is-gadeiryddion ar y 1 fis Gorffennaf. Nath yna'r un pwnc gael ei anfon ato chi i edrych arno fo. Ond wrth gwrs, os oes gynnoch chi rhywbeth sydd wedi dod i'ch sylw chi, sa chi'n licio i'r unrhyw un o'r pwyllgorau craffu edrych arno fo, sa chi'n llenwi'r ffurlen yn atodiad 2 i hanfon a'i atai, a wedyn mae'r grŵp cadeiryddion yn cyfarfod eto ar y 9 y fis Medi. Felly fysa nhw'n ei ystyried amser ynny. Os oes rhywbeth wedi dod allan o'r adroddiad heddiw, da chi'n meddwl sa chi'n licio craffu arno fo fanylach, plis llenwch y ffurlen y mewn a gyrwch i atai, a wedyn nawn ni ofyn nhw edrych arno fo. Wedyn yn atodiad 3 mae'r rhaglen waith cabinet, a wedyn atodiad 4 di'r diweddara ar eich argymhellion chi o'r cyfarfod dwytha. Dwi ddim yn meddwl bod yna ddim byd arall dwi angen i godi efo chi heddiw. Os gen i unrhyw gwestiwn?
Unrhyw gwestiwn? Hugh did Robert, sorry, Andrew first. Over to you, Andrew.
Chair. Hello.
Hello, carry on, Andrew. Yeah, fine.
Oh, just a quick question. Since we have some space in the next meeting, I'm particularly keen on the customer response reporting and things like that. I find it very difficult at the moment to handle with that, and I'd love that to be brought forward. Is it possible to bring that item, the CR 360, onto the next meeting?
Yeah, it's currently scheduled for the 25th of November.
Yeah.
I can definitely ask the service if they're in a position to bring it forward. That would.
If other people agree.
As lead member, can I come in there, Andrew?
Yeah, Hugh, please. Yeah.
I totally agree with you, Andrew. I think we could, if we ask the service, we can bring it forward. But I would also like, if you, as a committee, that you ask that as part of the paper, that you ask for each service's way of working with the 360, because I think that is fundamental. The issue. The system is the system. It's what you feed into it that's important. And I think the differences in each department doing it differently is why some information is better from some departments than other. I think to get to the bottom of this, we need to have that in the paper, if I may suggest.
I think, Rhian, yeah, I'm sure you can ask, and I hope that Hugh has agreed with the proviso with more details with the 360 DION. Yeah.
Yep, I can do that, no problem.
And this is why I'm saying it, is I know that one department now has actually created a position for somebody just to handle the 360s that are coming in on a daily basis, so that they're managing it rather than going to officers individually who may be on holiday for 2 weeks and then they can't reply.
Okay. Hugh, have you got anything else within education that you'd like us to look at? You know, you're in a situation, you know what's happening within education, because we can't look at the exam results. Is there anything within your responsibility that you'd like us to look at?
Yeah, I think you've had enough of me this last year, Adwell. I think things may come out over the summer when we have. I mean, obviously, there's just been an announcement about the curriculum, the new curriculum, which will be compulsory for primary schools, but not compulsory until a couple of years for secondary schools. So I think possibly there will be some stuff sort of November time, once we've had further guidelines from the Welsh Government. And obviously, because it's a new minister and a complete new bunch of staff as well, because there's been some retirements within the department as well. So I imagine sort of September time, if I sit down with Geraint, there'll probably be stuff that we can put on the work programme later on in the year, I think.
Yeah, I can just vouch for that, because Geraint has told me he has got a number of items he'd like to bring, but he's not at the stage yet to know exactly when he'll be able. Once he's comfortable.
Martin wants to come in. Diolch, Martin.
Mr. Chairman, obviously we're not going to have any, tables in relation to exam results, but it will be interesting to have a look at how the results, these assessments, come out across Wales, because obviously there may be discrepancies in the way that they're being dealt with. So that will be interesting to see.
Chair, can I come in there?
Yes.
Sorry to be so rude. I am a teacher. I deliver exams. I can tell exactly what my results are right now. So I would imagine that we will have some results we can look at. Whether there are national comparators or not is another thing, but we should have results from the county.
Yeah, Paul, we will have results, but we'll have nothing to compare them against, because Welsh Government have said that they're not going to issue them, and they've asked local authorities not to issue them. So.
Yeah, that's what I just said, but as Martin said, and I've just said, it would be nice to know how our pupils got on themselves, really.
Yeah, well, we'll share that with you anyway, the matter of course.
Okay,
what I'm saying is that the normal thing, we scrutinise, what we compare to Welsh Government, the national standard, blah, blah, blah. We can't do that, but we'll obviously share. It's ridiculous. I mean, because everyone has results the same. If in your school or my school, they have B's and A's, I don't know why we don't share them, but it's an edict from Welsh Government, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know that. I mean, if they got 50% A's to C's in Royal High School and 20% in Denby, that would be a comparison we could do ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah, of course we can. Yeah, that's no problem.
Ond fedrwn ni ddim felly gwneud dim arall at cefndi mis Medi ar hyn o bryd. Nawr, oes 'na rhywbeth yn codi. Sgynnoch chi rhywbeth, Rhian?
Dwi'n wedi holi am y CRM.
CRM. Thank you, Andrew, for that suggestion. Let's hope that we can have a look at the CRM system. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Neu hefyd ofyn am y wybodaeth o'r canlyniadau, ond mae'n beryg o jyst gwybodaeth fydd hwnnw.
Gwybodaeth, ie. O reit Hugh, diolch yn fawr i ti a diolch i chi. Felly, da ni bron a gorffen. Feedback from community representatives. Oes na rhywun wedi cynrychioli ni ar bwyllgorau tu allan i'r pwyllgor yma? Councillor Irving, diolch.
Thank you, Chair. Just to report, I should have represented the scrutiny committee, in 3 forums. 2 of them were service challenges. One was customer services, which we've just been talking about. Sadly, I didn't make that meeting. And the other one was last week, the BIM, the business management scrutiny. There's a lot of discussion there about COVID and COVID recovery. It might be useful. It was so detailed, it might be useful. I don't know what Rhiannon thinks, if you were to attach a copy of the minutes for that meeting or something of that nature to our minutes from this meeting. Maybe that might be a helpful way forward. I don't know what sort of reaction that suggestion gets. And the third one was I represent scrutiny on the Queen's Building project, which every week. So I keep a very close eye on that project.
Breaking up.
Can you can't. So I'll take my, just a moment. I'll take my video off. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah.
So just coming back to say that the Queen's Building Project Board meets every 2 weeks. I represent scrutiny on it, trying to keep a very close eye on the project. An awful lot of the discussions do come in, and I've clarified this yesterday at the meeting, do come under part 2. So it's difficult for me to report back, other than to say that the project is not without its challenges, but everybody's working very hard to endeavour to bring it through to a successful conclusion. It was suggested yesterday that there would be, or maybe there ought to be, an opportunity for it to go to scrutiny, but I'm not sure it might be too soon. And I don't know whether Rhiannon would like to check that out with Tom Booty, who's the senior officer there, or Graham Boas, to see when they think it may be appropriate for this project to come to scrutiny. And I'd be happy then to submit a scrutiny form. I don't know whether that would be a suitable way forward.
Diolch yn fawr, Hugh. Excellent.
Chair.
Yes.
Personally, I think that it should come sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I don't. Yes, well, I'm not arguing with that, Bob. I just don't think it's for me to say. You know.
No, I understand that. I understand, but you can convey that to them.
Yeah. Oh yes. No. The subject was raised that there ought to be a scrutiny. We think at some point. It's a question of what is appropriate. I
understand that.
Yeah. Particularly, a lot of the information is sensitive.
Well,
yeah.
But equally, what I would say is everybody is doing their very best to bring the project to a successful conclusion. But there are challenges with it at every turn, I think.
Diolch Hugh. Councillor Peter Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I was about to join in. There is a special meeting of the community scrutiny on the 26th of July to listen to the GTAA, the Gypsy Traveller Accommodation Assessment, where we're up to with that. So that's something to keep your eye on. It's only the assessment of the need for a Gypsy and Traveller accommodation. It's nothing to do with sites and things like that at this moment in time. I keep getting told. Thank you.
Ac yn olaf, Cynghorydd Ellie Chard.
Just to say, next Monday afternoon, I'm not sure who else is on this committee. I'm on the Education and Children's Service Challenge. So I'm representing this scrutiny. Okay, it's on Monday afternoon. And then I'll be able to report back at the end of September. Okay.
Well, I'm in the same boat, Ellie. I've got a social services challenge in the morning of the same day as you. So it's very busy times, but holidays are on the way.
And Chair, I'll be at both.
You would be there. Oh, you're still with us, Nicola. Da iawn. Da iawn.
Oh, yes.
Good, good. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi gyd, ac mae'r cyfarfod yn dod I ben. Mae wedi bod yn gyfarfod da, a dwi'n diolch yn fawr i'r swyddogion unwaith eto, Sharon on my right here, Steve, keeping an eye on everyone else in the back, a Rhian, wrth gwrs, yn cadw'r cofnodion, a hefyd y cyfieithydd Marian. Dymuno dda I chi gyd, a hwyl fawr. Ta-ta.